Hi, I'm Catherine Ayers-Wickenhauser, Director of Communications at Direct Trust, and I'm so excited today to be with Lisa Nelson, one of our newest Interop heroes and Vice President of Business Development and Principal Informaticist at Max MD. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Catherine.
So, Lisa, if we could start off today by telling us a little bit about yourself, about Max MD, and maybe why you're passionate about health IT.
Sure. I was going to tell you a little bit about MaxMD and share that MaxMD actually didn't find me when I went to work for them. I found MaxMD. I was finishing my medical informatics degree at Northwestern, and I was really focused on patients. I had started a nonprofit called Janie Appleseed that was seeking to ready individuals for the technology that I could see was coming. And I ran across MaxMD as a company that really had the same sort of mission and passion that I did. Absolutely committed to using standards, all standards, in order to advance interoperability and make data liquidity possible for all stakeholders, including patients. And I think it was just like a match made in heaven. The organization had the same vision and goals that I did, and that's how we found each other.
I love that. And you mentioned Janie Appleseed, and I know your connection there, but would you tell the audience a little bit more? And I'm curious if that ties to your why and your passion about being in health IT.
Absolutely. My belief was that the skills that I had acquired, I've been in health IT for quite some time, technology way back to the 1980s. And then I got involved with a company that was building cardiology PACS systems, and that's how I really learned about the power of a standard. In that case, it was DICOM, that could really change the way a whole industry worked, taking cath labs all over the United States from film-oriented and a really old-fashioned system to absolutely new digital technology. And when I got involved with that, and I realized that as an individual, somebody who is a mom and just a daughter and just a person out in my day-to-day life, hearing how many times people were struggling in life because of health-related issues, going to the doctor, getting their information, knowing what's going on with their health, and not really knowing how to keep themselves well, maybe to avoid it. I really felt like interoperability was the one thing that I could bring to help make life better for people. So that's why I got started as Janie Appleseed, just doing it on a person-by-person basis.
I love that. And I think it's something that's so relatable because I'm even thinking of a story personally yesterday where my mom was having issues with one of her physicians faxing results to another physician and just encountering that issue. And everybody has a story like that, whether it be their personal experience or family experience or hearing about it from someone else. And so that's so relatable. And I know that you've been a present force in the interoperability scene for many years. And one of the reasons you were nominated as an Interop hero was because you are involved in so many different organizations. And I'd love to know more about why you make the time to volunteer in these organizations and what you think that time and that effort produces.
Well, probably that would be my super secret hero power, right? Wonder Woman has the lasso of truth, and Superman has like the eyes that can see through anything. I think this ability to operate in a large SBO is actually my superpower, because it's that harnessing that kind of an organization that actually makes it possible for one individual to make such a big difference. What I experienced being involved in these organizations is that my review of a spec, my ideas contributed to how we might handle something. Just as this one teeny little effort, but when you multiply it by all of the other folks that are rubbing off from those ideas, helping to build the spec, then building something that goes out into the world and influences how a bunch of different developers implement something, and it really mushrooms because of that organization. And when you can do it across organizations, like I participate in Direct Trust, HL7, IHE, Chic, it's like a bee, pollinating around in all these different flowers. It just makes the effect so much greater because you share good ideas from one place to another. Next thing you know, the fire lights up someplace else, and you have a whole other community that's sparked by the possibilities. And so for me, it's about being the kind of individual that wants to make a difference. Number one, if that's a passion for you, like it is for me, to make your efforts meaningful, I just found that contributing my time in places like standards development organizations was the greatest way to sort of orchestrate much larger change.
Sure. And that imagery of a bee pollinating around is just so perfect as an analogy because thinking about health IT and interoperability and where we are, I think we recognize that it's a group effort, right? No one organization can make progress on our own. It really is a collective effort, and it takes these efforts that we're hearing about through the Interop Hero campaign and others really to make that progress. And so I think we've seen that a key tenet and key foundation of health IT and interoperability is collaboration. And so I'm curious if you have additional thoughts on how you've seen collaboration in these organizations and in the industry.
Yeah, I always say standards development is a team sport, and it is for sure. Um, For me, the collaboration, even in the early days when I was involved with Heart Lab and what we were doing with DICOM and cardiology space, to see organizations come together, which typically you think of, picture their logos, sales guys not getting along, and the competition that exists between organizations that are out in the marketplace behaving like competitors. When you get into the standards world and you start to work with these other incredibly smart individuals who are pulling together to solve problems in more efficient ways, the camaraderie and the support and the openness is unbelievable. So much respect for ideas and for each other's points of view. It's one of the most nurturing kinds of environments that I could ever imagine working in. So I feel like that has been a really special aspect of it, and something, if you ever wanted to maybe regenerate your belief in mankind and our ability to work together, come and see what's possible in a standards development organization.
And this just makes me so joyful too, because it's just reaffirming thoughts that I have and love about this industry and how collaborative it is and how we're all working towards a common goal. And one of the things that you mentioned, Lisa, is that there's these different points of view and bringing them together and multi-contributor, right? That we need multiple points of view to ultimately advance us towards our goal. And so thinking about that multi-contributor view, obviously we need multiple people to get involved. And so what would you say the opportunity is to get involved, or what would be your advice to someone who might be thinking about getting involved?
Right, great. I was just thinking when I was a kid, my mom gave me this poetry book, and there was a simple little poem in it that said something like, um, imagine that a smile as small as mine might be precisely your necessity. And the idea was that sometimes even the smallest contribution from somebody can just make the perfect difference. And people don't realize their experiences and their perspectives, because of the jobs that they do, the places where they contribute, can be so different than what anybody else might have or know. And just showing up and contributing that point of view can be door opening. You might come up with a whole different option for how you might solve a problem. And it's the kind of thing where no one should underestimate the value of what their point of view is going to add to the mix. And if they weren't there sharing their point of view, you might come up with a totally different direction to take. Or you might miss a whole opportunity to do things or see things in a different way. And so I encourage people not to be afraid and think, oh, I don't have anything to add, or I don't know how to speak the acronyms, and say, just set that aside and come and bring your own point of view, your own perspective to the problem solving, and that can be what's needed. Talk about use cases, and that's something we were talking about, sharing patient stories. I was going to say the only thing rare is that people only have one. Mostly when you start to talk to people, because of their own lives and their family members, they have tons of experience. And those real life stories can really be the grain of sand that starts that pearl forming inside the oyster. And we all have our life stories that we bring to these problems, and then that can shape what's the technology need, what really needs to happen for the solution to be valuable. That kind of thinking sometimes is something that the least technical people bring to the whole stew. So there's roles for everyone.
Sure. And thinking about our conversation today and thinking about the different SDOs that you're involved in and the opportunity to volunteer, I want to maybe switch gears just slightly for a second and thinking about health IT and the interop landscape. And as you framed it, kind of the patient issue and our experience as patients, thinking about where we're trying to get in interoperability and more expeditious and secure information flow. Are standards the solution to get there?
Well, there's only one answer that's going to come from me. Absolutely. If you think about a problem, somebody said the other day, 3.5. I think it was Kyle on the new identity briefing that you had yesterday. 3.5 million people. So many different stakeholders, so much connectivity that needs to happen for the needed information to flow to the places that it needs to get to. And it's just not feasible if we don't utilize standards. It's true in every other major industry, banking, all forms of electronics, anywhere, movie making, you pick something, and whatever industry it is, I can tell you that there are standards driving what made the growth and the maturation of that industry possible. So I think that's unquestionable. Standards has got to be a big part of it. The other big part, which I was originally drawn to MaxMD about, it's deep in their DNA, something I believe, and that is trust. They say interoperability can only grow at the speed of trust. And that fundamental component, sometimes it's hard, and some systems get started. Entrepreneurs begin making things, solutions come into place without thinking through the full problem of connectivity. And when you're insulated, you don't have to worry about trusting others. But when you begin to really interoperate, you have to have that. It's a fundamental flaw if that's not in place as a foundation. And so I think the combination of trust and trust frameworks with standards to sort of simplify the way that we share data, I think those are the two most important ingredients.
Sure. And, certainly at Direct Trust, we agree. Many people know us for the first half of our name and direct secure messaging, but that's really nothing without trust, right? That it only scales, just like you said, if there's trust involved. And so we certainly consider that to be our foundation. And I'm glad that you called that out as a critical component to scaling interoperability. And just thinking about, it's been 10 plus years that we've been addressing this problem, but I think maybe in the mainstream health IT community since Meaningful Use and some of the other programs, it's been about 10 years, and we've made a lot of progress, but obviously there's still a lot more to go. And I'm curious, do you have a call to action for your peers relative to standards and getting involved?
Well, the only way it's going to go any faster is if more people help us row. So, getting involved is a big part of it. And whether you're helping to invent, I would say the early years, which can seem really long, those long bottom of the S curve growth phases, seem like they take forever when mostly the creators are involved. But what happens, and where I think we are now, is we're sort of heading up that S. The climb gets steeper, but more people will get involved, and the opportunity is there, even if your major role is going to be a repeater rather than a creator. Learn something, teach it to somebody else, help us accelerate the adoption and the growth of the good ideas that have been put in place, and help us go up this learning curve and adoption curve that we really need to climb. I think that, part of that is getting to a tipping point. So that's another good reason to get involved, because as more people do, the better the chance that we're going to get to that tipping point. And then it will be easier for everybody else. So I say, join the flash mob. I was going to try and work in the Macarena here somewhere. This might be my one moment. I do feel like what we're doing is, in the beginning, we're inventing the dance moves and just figuring out what to do. But when enough people learn to do it, that suddenly when the music goes on and everybody jumps on the dance floor and we all know what to do, I think that's what we're aiming for. And the standards are kind of like the Macarena. We have to get to a point that everybody knows what dance moves to do, so that it gets easier and that we can be more natural about what we should be doing, have it integrated into the way that we think about sharing data, and then it will just, it'll just be about having that experience of having everybody be ready to do it.
And I think that's another perfect visual, thinking about the second that song comes on, everybody knows what to do. And that's what we're looking for with standards, and standards development work is coming up with those moves. What order do we put them in? What's the song that they go to? How will this catch on? How can it be more appealing? And I think you really outlined that. And even to your point earlier about everyone can be a contributor, thinking about how one person might propose something, but then someone else might propose something different, and it changes the whole thing for the better. So I love that analogy, and just going back to that, music comes on and everybody knows what to do, and that's where we're trying to get to. So Lisa, this has been a tremendous conversation, and I love that it was focused around standards development work and around getting involved. And certainly we'd love to see more people get involved in health IT and interoperability. And I'm curious if you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to leave the listeners with today.
Well, the only thing I can think of is maybe this will air around October 30th, or that time of year when everybody's thinking about what do you want to be for Halloween, and maybe this year's #1 costume will be the interoperability superhero.
Yeah, I like it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. So
thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you, Lisa. Have a great day.